earlier in the show, you were talking about when you made your transition over from high school to college, and the one area where you noticed that you dropped the ball is with the whole financial aid process.
Yes, I thought I was big and bad, tried to do the financial aid process on my own, and I completely flopped. Like, I made the mistake of filing as an independent because I didn't understand the FAFSA form. Oh my God, it was terrible. And I had to go through a lot to reverse that. So I know how important it is to know that, to understand how to do FAFSA, or else you can mess everything up, not get the right amount of money because the government thinks you make money. So it's very important.
Oh my God, dang.
Yeah.
Sorry, but now she's good. Okay, well,
yeah, everything's
I am
good
sure
now.
there are others that feel the same way as you do. So we've invited VP and co-founder of Latino Youth for Higher Education Program, aka LYHEP. LYHEP. Yes, Sonia Sendoya works to support and design programming around the higher education system for recently arrived Latino or Latina immigrant high school students. She believes in the power of education and joins the efforts to provide guidance to those families who find themselves lost in the process. Come on out here, Sonia.
Thank you.
Hey.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
By the way, I love your name.
Yes,
Thank
your name is
you.
beautiful.
Yes.
We love saying your last name, by the way.
Sonia Sendoya. I love it. I love it so much.
Thank you.
All right, so before we get into the application process, can you please explain to our viewers what the federal student aid application is?
Yeah, so for all young people who are residents of the United States or citizens of the United States can apply to something called a financial aid, right? It's FAFSA. So it's a form where you put your parents or guardians' income, and then from there, there's some calculations that are done from the government, and they provide you with support to go to college. And these come in different ways.
Okay, what are the types of different aids? What are different types of aids?
Yeah, so you have something called work study, and so you can work on campus. You have the opportunity to not only gain experience in school, and they really work with your schedule, so they're really flexible in that way. And then you also have your subsidized and your unsubsidized loans. So you want to make sure that you are understanding, that you're reading, that you're seeking your school counselors, whether you're in high school or your college advisors, college financial reps in college, to think about loans and the interests and how long those are accrued over time.
Okay, so to apply for student aid, you have to fill out the free application for federal student aid form, aka the FAFSA, correct?
Yes.
A lot of people say FAFSA, and
Yeah,
it's
I
actually
say it.
FAFSA. Yeah, I
FAFSA.
made the mistake of saying it that way myself. It sounds easy, but this is where a lot of people, such as myself, run into problems. According to an article I read, high school graduates lost as much as $2.7 billion in grants during the last academic year because they didn't fill out the FAFSA correctly, or they didn't complete the form at all. This brings me to my next question. Who is eligible and who should apply for FSA? For instance, you know how some people say, oh, I can't apply because my parents make too much money? So like, who should and shouldn't, who should apply and how?
So I personally think that all students who are trying to go to college should apply, right? I think that it can get very tricky in terms of understanding the financials aspects. So I think that it's always great to use the hotline to make sure you are getting support from folks that are the experts in the FAFSA, the federal student application. But I believe that every student should really be applying for these for this type of financial aid. Why? Because you have different types of student loans that are subsidized and unsubsidized. And at the end of the day, although we're growing with student debt, right? And I think that's something that's kind of growing in the country right now. I think at the end, education is an investment, right? So definitely reach out to the experts, right, that you are calling from FAFSA, and also the experts at the college institutions that can definitely help you in terms of who specifically, what income you should be putting in. But personally, I think that all students should be applying for the FAFSA.
Okay. Okay, so in this same article, it said that one little mistake on the form could result in a loss of up to tens of thousands of dollars of eligibility. And we want our viewers to get all the money that is attainable to them. So what are some common mistakes to avoid while you're filling out the FAFSA?
Well, definitely thinking about the income. So, but if your parents are separated, right? So thinking about who you live with the most. So if your parents, or who you're with the most of the time. So if your parents are separated, right, but they're still married, they're certainly, and they're filing jointly, right? It really depends on how they're filing. You should definitely think about who you're spending the most time with. And that should be the income that you're putting on your FAFSA.
Okay.
Okay. So thinking about that, that's sometimes students are unaware. They put both. So that's one. I think that the other one that I see is particularly with young people who are citizens. Sometimes they don't know how to perceive or continue with the FAFSA if their parents are undocumented. So if you're a citizen or a resident of the United States, you can still apply to the federal application, and in the column where it says or asks for parents' social security number, you just put zeros. Some people put in their ITNN numbers, so you always want to make sure you're putting zeros. At least those are the ones that the young people that I work with, those are
what you've
some of
encountered?
those are the things that I've encountered the most.
Okay, so a mistake on the form can also delay the processing of your application, basically. So do you recommend for students to do it alone, or should they have some
Yeah,
help?
I always recommend young people to make sure that they do the form either with the FAFSA help, so there are chats you can log into, you can use the online. I know in this type of age we're using chat rooms and text messages, so and they respond rather quickly, so that's great. But I also recommend someone who, either a financial aid advisor at your college or your college advisor at your high school. Always look over the financial aid, just in case that something might come up that you might not be aware of.
Do you recommend using the paper form or filling out online?
Usually the filling out online is definitely much faster. Back in the day when I applied, I had to do a PIN number, but now they're using FSA IDs. So make sure that you are changing and like making sure you're updating. There are also a few changes to the FAFSA this year. So I definitely think that you should definitely use the adult to help you and support you in that way, or someone who's sort of around experience with the financial aid application.
So what are some of the new changes to the FAFSA?
So actually, earlier in 2015, September 2015, the FAFSA will be filed instead of January 1st when it opens. It's now going to be open October 1st.
Oh.
And it's actually...
I remember that. Like, they were like on New Year's, like right after New Year's, make sure you apply.
Yeah. So they're trying to make it easier for folks to use income and the taxes of your actual year. So if you're entering, and this can get really tricky, right? So if you're entering college in September of next year, you can still, of September of this year, you should have already filed your FAFSA, right? Okay. But October 1st is the new deadline. So young people who are in high school at the moment should start getting their paperwork ready, because October 1st is when you should be filing your FAFSA, and you can use the 2015 taxes.
Oh, okay.
So my next question would have been, how soon should one apply? But now we understand that October 1st of that year is the best time to apply.
Yeah, so October 1st, and I think the deadline's actually coming into effect this year. So you should be applying this year if you're a high school senior going into college for 2017, 2018. You should be applying October 1st. If you are entering college September 2016 now, you should be filing the January 1st deadline. So it is very tricky, and I think schools are still trying to adjust around that. So I would suggest to just make sure, continue to follow up with your college advisors or your financial reps at your colleges, or definitely check out the fafsa.gov website.
Okay, what are some of the factors that determine how much money a person gets rewarded?
That depends a lot on the income, right? So I think that's like one of the number one factors, right? But also making sure that you are applying ASAP. So I always think of this type of aid as a giant pot of money, right? So it's almost like first comes, first served.
Yeah.
But also thinking about when you are applying to colleges, thinking about the opportunity programs that are also being provided at the school that can also give you extra cushion for funding with your tuition.
Definitely. Okay. So your organization primarily helps Latinos, some of whom are first-generation college students and or undocumented. What are some of the added challenges in the application process for this demographic?
Oh, there's so many challenges, particularly for young people who are undocumented. Unfortunately, they cannot apply for financial aid. So young people who don't have papers in the United States cannot apply for the Fafsa, and in New York State, we have something called TAP, right? So that's also another type of financial resource. Unfortunately, if a young person is undocumented, they cannot apply to neither of these. So they have to look for ways to find scholarships. And then young people who are recently arrived to the country, the process itself, it's really intricate. So if a young person is new to the country, it's still trying to understand the language, it's still trying to adjust to the cultural shock, it's still trying to adjust to like family separation and family reunification, there are just extra challenges that come into that plate. So those are a few of the challenges that young people that I've worked with are experiencing, and also just it's a new thing, so it's challenging itself to sort of learn the ins and outs of what the financial aid process looks like.
I also had another question, because obviously some students today are gonna try to apply online. It's more easier. I've always been told to make sure I put .gov. Is that true?
Yes, and it's so funny because that actually happened to me. So my first year of college, I was paying $50 to do my financial aid, and all my friends were asking me like, why are you paying $50? I was like, what do you mean? This is how much they're charging me. They're like, no, Sonia, you're getting scammed. So it's always important that you do use the FAFSA.gov website, because that is it's the government issued website. So there are scams out there. I was a victim of that, and I did that.
Did it work?
It did. So I was getting my financial aid in, but I was paying a fee to a website to just send it
Where
through.
does your fee go? That's so
I mean, they're
crazy.
trying to make the money.
Yeah. I was also, I was born in Colombia, so I didn't know that process itself either, right? So that was also very challenging on my end. My parents didn't know English, and so trying to navigate that process was a little challenging itself. So I definitely recommend that to always make sure that to use .gov at the end.
Okay, so in addition to financial aid, I know that LYHEP offers other workshops. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so LYHEP, it's a non-for-profit, and we work specifically with Latino recently arrived immigrant students. And we offer workshops around the college process. We offer workshops around helping them navigate through how to create a list. So thinking about what kind of colleges you can apply to. We also support young people in going on college tours and really talking about different types of vocabulary that is used in college, so thinking about majors. We really do a little bit of everything, and we also do workshops with parents. So we really focus in helping them understand the process, really thinking about navigating a CUNY school, navigating a SUNY school, navigating private schools. And what does that really look like for a young person who is Latino, Latina, less than 4 or 5 years in the country, and how can they see themselves successfully graduating from college? So those are a few of our workshops, and then we also have a subgroup program called Camino al Futuro. So we do.
Walk in your future?
I was just, in my head, I was just going over the ending.
Yeah, so Camino al Futuro is Road to the Future.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we really try to create spaces for young people to sort of talk about their migration stories, talk about their narratives.
That's awesome.
Talk about what it means to be in New York City when they're coming from very rural areas and, you know, skyscrapers and taking the train. So we really try to create a space where they can come together and create a family, a home away from home. So that's what Camino al Futuro has really been about for the past 3 years.
That's amazing, because I know if I were just coming from a country like maybe like Colombia and I know no one here and I make friends in a group like that, like I just feel more welcome.
Makes you feel at home,
like you have friends here, so that's amazing.
Well, as our viewers can see, LYHEP is an incredible organization. So where can they find more information on LYHEP?
Yeah, so we actually have a Facebook page. So it's LYHEP. You can just Google us on Facebook. I'm sorry, just on the search tab on Facebook, LYHEP. We also have a website called lyhep.org. Our application for Camino al Futuro is actually coming out.
Okay.
So the deadline is June 1st. And so if young people we're only taking current 9th graders who have been in the country for less than 4 or 5 years, and that information is also on our website.
Thank you so much for being
Thanks for
here
coming,
today,
yeah.
Sonia. We really appreciate you being here. I know that the information you gave us helped someone out there.
You're welcome.
We're going to give you all our social media information, and then it's time for our Nightcap Spotlight.